Hey guys, tonight we slip past the pearly gates and down a trail no sermon dares to follow. You know the one, the shimmering winged prince turned whispering serpent, the courtroom drama between heaven and hell, and the divine silence that makes you wonder, why hasn't God just ended Satan already? Picture it, angelic armies frozen mid-flight, heaven echoing with rebellion, and God still deliberate watching. You're about to see why that silence isn't weakness, but something far stranger. And just a heads up, you probably won't survive this without a reality check or two. This journey will bend your brain, nudge your faith, and give you a glimpse into how cosmic justice actually works. Not in church speak, but in that raw, unsettling late-night way where the Bible reads more like a supernatural thriller than a guidebook. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your city and local time in the comments. I want to know who's wide awake out there with me. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. When Lucifer sparkled too bright, you walk through the golden corridors of heaven's earliest days, long before sin had a name, and there he stands, Lucifer. His name means light bringer, and he wears it well. Imagine a being so dazzling, even other angels slow down to watch him pass, created perfect, radiant, musical even. According to Ezekiel's strange poetic vision, he was the anointed cherub, the VIP of heaven's hierarchy. But that brilliance, it starts to hum with self-awareness. The kind that doesn't just admire the light, it wants to own it. Historians still argue whether Lucifer's pride was seeded by beauty, position, or divine proximity itself. One quirky rabbinic tradition even claims he began singing songs better than the rest, earning envy instead of applause. What's undeniable is this: Lucifer wasn't born Satan. He became him, slowly, a creeping crack in flawless glass. And here's the twist: God gave him the freedom to fall. Not a trap, but a terrifying kind of love. The ability to choose. And Lucifer chose himself. You start to feel the weight of that heavenly gamble, because the question isn't why God created Satan, it's why he didn't make him unable to rebel in the first place. That's the first thread in a knot God now refuses to cut. The day heaven held its breath. You're standing at the edge of a celestial battlefield, but there's no blood, just stillness. Whispers, a hum of tension in the air. Lucifer, now swollen with self-love, doesn't just walk out of heaven, he recruits. Revelation hints that a third of the stars code for angels fall with him. That's not a minor rebellion, that's an attempted coup in paradise. And yet, no thunderbolt, no instant annihilation. God watches calm, composed. You'd think this is where the divine gavel comes down hard. But instead of erasing the rebel prince, God lets the drama unfold. Why? Some scholars believe it's because God operates under laws even he doesn't break. He's just, but not reactionary, omnipotent but never impulsive. It's as if he's preserving something greater than power, something like cosmic integrity. Here's your quirky tidbit. In medieval Europe, monks whispered that Satan wasn't punished because heaven hadn't yet written laws for angelic treason. Kind of like a divine legal loophole. Historians still argue whether this non-intervention proves divine mercy or something else, perhaps a deliberate allowance for history to unfold without shortcuts. Either way, the moment Lucifer crosses that line, God doesn't strike. He waits, and you start to realize, maybe wiping out evil isn't about power. Maybe it's about proving that freedom, even misused, is worth keeping sacred. Which means this isn't just about Satan rebelling. It's about what kind of universe God insists on running. Thrown down, not wiped out. You follow him now, Lucifer, wings charred by pride, as he's hurled from heaven like a lightning bolt. Jesus himself recalls it in Luke, almost like a flashback. I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. You imagine that free fall not just from a place but from favor, from beloved to cursed, from how you have fallen, O morning star, to earthbound exile. But here's the strange part, he survives. He isn't destroyed, vaporized, or erased. No divine hit squad sent to clean up. Instead, he lands in our realm, still conscious, still cunning, still dangerous. You'd think God would lock him up instantly, but instead he allows him room to move, to influence, to whisper, and you feel it creeping. Why? Some theologians suggest it's because Satan's role isn't finished. That his very presence helps expose human hearts, test loyalty, sharpen faith. Others say he remains alive because spiritual beings, once created, aren't designed to be destroyed. They exist outside the cycle of life and death. Quirky idea? A few early Christian sects even believed Satan begged for forgiveness once, and God said no. Historians still argue whether Satan's fall was metaphorical, dimensional, or physical, but they agree on this: it wasn't terminal. So now you're stuck with him, roaming Earth like a disgraced diplomat with no home but plenty of influence. You start to see how exile isn't always defeat. Sometimes it's the stage for something darker to unfold. And God, still silent. The spirits that just won't die. You crouch in the shadows now, watching the fallen ones, Lucifer's entourage, the angels who traded celestial glory for chaos. They don't age, they don't bleed, they don't die. You begin to notice something unnerving. These beings, once holier, are now eternal problems with no expiration date. Why didn't God just unmake them? The Bible describes angels as spiritual beings, woven from a different fabric than humans. They're not born, they're created. Directly, intentionally, and according to most scholars, they don't reproduce or perish. When one falls, it doesn't fade, it just twists. This is where things get crunchy. Ancient texts, like the Book of Enoch, yeah, that one scholars side-eye but secretly read, described these fallen angels, teaching humans forbidden knowledge, how to make weapons, summon spirits, even apply makeup, a little eyeliner, a little apocalypse. Quirky fringe belief? Some medieval mystics thought these spirits cling to places like mildew, haunting spaces between dimensions, too stubborn or too cursed to die. Historians still argue whether angels can die or if their immortality is part of God's eternal decree. But one thing's clear, God doesn't seem to erase them. Not yet. So here they are. Not ghosts, not gods, just eternal rebels with time on their side. You look at the mess they've made, wars, lies, betrayals, and you wonder, is God keeping them around for a reason? Or is he just waiting for the perfect moment to act? Why God watches but doesn't strike. You look up now, halfway through history's strangest standoff, God on the throne, Satan in motion, and not a single fireball hurled. You start to feel it deep in your bones. The tension isn't just between good and evil, it's between power and patience. Why does God wait? This isn't a lazy kind of delay, it's calculated, strategic. The Bible calls God long-suffering, which is just a poetic way of saying he's watching the worst happen on purpose. And that wrecks your sense of justice a little, doesn't it? Think about Pharaoh. God let him flex through 10 plagues before finally stepping in. Same with Saul, or Judas, or, well, everyone. Some scholars believe God's waiting because the story isn't over yet, that if he removed Satan too soon, he'd short-circuit the full arc of redemption. That humanity needs the choice to choose wrong, so love can actually mean something. Here's a weird one. Early church fathers used to say Satan is God's monkey, not an equal but a permitted fool, allowed to roam the stage only to trip himself later. Charming, right? Historians still argue whether this divine delay is mercy, necessity, or pure narrative pacing. But from your side of the glass, it feels like silence, deafening, holy silence. And yet, every second God waits is a second Satan digs deeper. So you wonder, not why God hasn't ended him, but what exactly he's waiting for. Because that clock is ticking, and heaven's hands don't shake. And yet every second God waits is a second Satan digs deep. Hell isn't open yet. You peer downward now, expecting fire, raging pits, pitchforks, maybe a tormented scream or two. But hell? It's strangely quiet, locked, reserved, like a theater waiting for its final act. And Satan? Nowhere near it. This is where most people get tripped up. We assume Satan runs hell, or at least vacations there between temptations. But biblically speaking, he's not the landlord. He's a future inmate, and the doors haven't even opened yet. Revelation calls hell the lake of fire, but it's treated like future real estate. Even the infamous beast and false prophet don't get tossed in until the end. Right now, Satan's still loose on earth, influencing, scheming, like a villain out on bail. Is a fringe tidbit. Some ancient Jewish sects believed there were levels of hell, and that certain fallen angels were already locked in a section called Tartarus. But not Satan, not yet. Historians still argue whether hell is metaphorical fire or literal punishment, but they agree on one chilling point: it's not active yet. It's sealed, like a cosmic courtroom. Verdict written, sentence delayed. So God hasn't sent Satan to hell because the gates aren't open. Not until the final trumpet. Until then, earth is the middle ground, haunted by a war that hasn't finished, in a courtroom where the sentence hasn't dropped, and you're stuck in the hallway between the verdict and the execution. God's courtroom. Satan still has access. You find yourself now in a place you didn't expect Satan to be, heaven. Yep, after the fall, after the rebellion, after the exile, he's back. But not as royalty, more like legal counsel with a very creepy badge. The book of Job opens with an unsettling scene. The sons of God present themselves before the Lord, and there's Satan, strolling in like he still belongs. God doesn't banish him. Instead, he asks where he's been. Satan casually replies, "Oh, just roaming the earth." No thunder, no fire, just conversation. This isn't a fluke, it's a pattern. Theologians call it the divine courtroom, a celestial setup where Satan plays the role of accuser. That's literally what his name means in Hebrew. Ha-Satan, the adversary, not just a rebel but a prosecutor, authorized, invited, even quirky fringe belief. Some ancient Christian mystics claim that Satan shows up to test not just humans but angels too, a sort of cosmic quality control gone wrong. Historians still argue whether these scenes are literal or symbolic, but either way, the message is bizarrely consistent. Satan still has limited access to heaven, not to rule, not to reside, but to challenge, to accuse. So why doesn't God revoke the pass? Maybe because the trial isn't over. Maybe because Satan's accusations, twisted as they are, serve a purpose, exposing what's fake, sharpening what's real. The gavel hasn't dropped yet, but the case is very much active. And you're Exhibit A? Why erasing evil breaks the rules. Now you sit at the edge of a heavenly paradox. If God is all-powerful, why doesn't he just delete Satan like a bad file? Control, Alt, eternal oblivion. But here's the twist. Removing Satan instantly would do more than fix evil. It would shatter the rules of the entire universe. See, God's justice isn't about shortcuts. It's not about being the strongest, it's about being the fairest. And if God erases Satan without a process, without trial, without fulfillment of prophecy, it becomes tyranny, not righteousness. Mercy, consequence, choice, they all unravel. You think about Adam and Eve. God didn't stop the serpent's mouth, didn't guard the tree with a firewall. He allowed freedom, and with it failure. It's not a bug in the system, it is the system. One quirky medieval theory said if God destroyed Satan instantly, the other angels would serve out of fear, not love. No loyalty, just compliance, a cosmic dictatorship. Historians still argue whether God can't or won't destroy Satan yet. But the heart of the matter, erasing evil without letting it expose itself, would make good meaningless. It's not enough to destroy Satan. He has to lose, visibly, thoroughly, justly. So you realize God's delay isn't weakness, it's integrity. And that somehow is more terrifying than raw power, because it means the pain has a purpose, and justice takes the scenic route. Is Satan part of the plan? Now your thoughts take a darker turn, the kind you hesitate to say out loud. What if Satan isn't just a glitch in the system, but part of the script? You remember Isaiah calling him the morning star, and Ezekiel describing him as perfect in beauty, until iniquity was found in him. The story reads less like a mistake and more like a setup. Could it be that his rebellion, his deception, his presence is something God allowed, not just passively, but intentionally? It's a dangerous thought. But consider this. Without Satan, there's no fall. No need for a Messiah, no cross, no resurrection. The entire redemption arc hangs on a villain. And not just any villain, a personal one, one who knows heaven, who's played both sides of the curtain. Some early Christian thinkers whispered it with hesitation, that Satan plays the dark thread in the tapestry of divine storytelling, that without the shadow you never notice the light. Even quirkier, some ancient texts flirt with the idea that Satan was testing creation by design, not by accident, a sort of divine stress test. Historians still argue whether Satan is merely tolerated or strategically used, but the results are clear. His actions trigger some of the Bible's most dramatic moments. You begin to see it not as approval, but as allowance. God doesn't need Satan, but he uses him. And in doing so flips evil on its head, turns rebellion into refinement, turns the villain into a stepping stone for glory. Revelation's final lockdown, and now you've arrived. End of the line. The pages grow heavier, the visions stranger, and in Revelation, the story that's been simmering for millennia finally catches fire. Satan doesn't win, but he also doesn't die quickly. You watch him get chained for 1,000 years, like a cosmic timeout, then released again, just long enough to rally one final rebellion, and then only then is he tossed into the lake of fire. No parole, no courtroom, just eternal exile. Why the delay? Why the strange, symbolic countdown? Some scholars say God is proving something once and for all, that even after a millennium of peace, evil will still choose evil. No outside influence, no excuses, just raw, revealed rebellion. Satan unmasks himself entirely, so when judgment falls, it's not vengeance, it's inevitability. Quirky belief? A few early theologians claim Satan asked to be annihilated, to just cease, but that God refused, because punishment wasn't just about ending him, it was about making an example through him. Historians still argue whether this is prophecy in motion or apocalyptic poetry, but Revelation leaves no ambiguity. God will end it, but not a second too soon. And now you understand. God hasn't killed Satan yet, because the story isn't done. Justice is thorough. Timing is perfect. And every word in that final chapter has to be fulfilled, down to the last whisper. So here we are, soft landing after a long descent through rebellion, restraint, courtroom tension, and cosmic silence. Your mind might be spinning, a little tired, a little stirred. And that's okay. Some questions don't beg for answers, they ask for wonder. You've seen how even evil isn't ignored. It's watched, weighed, allowed, but never uncontrolled. That in this strange and sacred universe, delay doesn't mean defeat. It means patience, purpose, precision. Maybe now you're starting to see God not as an absent judge, but as an author, writing a story so rich, he even lets the villain speak, just long enough to condemn himself.
And you?
You're part of it, not a bystander, not an accident. You're proof that light shines clearer when shadows pass through. The fire in Revelation isn't just punishment, it's closure, finality, a seal over everything that tried to twist what was good. And if you're hearing this, tucked in somewhere between midnight and morning, know this. You are not forgotten in this story. You are not overlooked in the war. And no matter how loud the darkness gets, it is always on a timer. So exhale. Let the silence feel safe again. Let your heart unclench. Evil has its hour, but not the final word. That belongs to a voice stronger than storms, softer than sleep. You're safe now. The story isn't over. But for tonight, let it rest.